Hello, welcome to a new video, and today I am bringing you my April reading wrap up. And it was not as good as March, but it was still a really good reading month for me, and I'm really happy with my reading. I did almost complete my TBR. The only thing I didn't end up reading off of my TBR was actually one that I didn't have to read it this month, and I have rolled it over to May's TBR, so I'm very happy with that. I did read a total of 17 books, and I did DNF an 18th, which I'm a bit gutted about, but we'll get into that in a minute. I read a total of 5,783 pages and listened to 37.5 hours of audiobooks. So star rating wise, it was really good. There were no 2 stars, no 3 stars, 10 4 stars, and 7 5 stars. So without further ado, we're gonna talk about the DNF first. So I did DNF Roma by Sophie Oksanen, and I'm really gutted about this because I bought this especially for Eurovision-a-thon 3 years ago. I really liked the cover and the book sounded pretty okay. So I got this and I got 70 pages in, but I just had no idea what the actual plot was supposed to be of this book. So she has like supernatural hair. There's no explanation as to what the hair does really, what the purpose of this power is, and no explanation of where it's come from. And it's just very confusing. And then there's like this whole like thrillery mystery side plot which made no sense whatsoever, and I don't know if I maybe just didn't give it enough attention, even though I was fully focused on this, not doing nothing else. And I don't know if it was I don't know, but I'm actually really sad. But we're gonna take the bookmark out now. So now we move on to books I did complete. So I did finish my reread of the Saga of Darren Shan by Darren Shan. So it was books 8, 9, 10, 11 and 12. All of these books were a 4-star each. I'm not going to talk about them individually. I will say though, on the individually, there is something that happens in the final book that really throws me because it's not addressed as an issue. So this is going to be a bit spoilery for here. So you know the drill. Once I put my hand down, I'm not talking spoilers. So are you gone? Cool. So in the last book, we find out that Darren's sister had a son. And we later find out that the dad of that son is Stephen, who is like his arch nemesis. So that's fine. This kid, I think it's Darius, is Darren's nephew. Then we later find out, we find that out in book like 11 or something. And then at the end of book 12, we find out that Steve and Darren are brothers. They are half brothers. So that means Steve and Annie were half brother and sister. So Steve had a kid with his half sister. And that part is not addressed. It's a major glaring plot hole in this series that no one addresses. Like when they find out that, you know, Steve's the dad of Annie's kid, which, you know, fine. Saw it coming. But then you find out later that they're actually related, and no one addresses the fact that incest. So yeah. But apart from that one thing, that one glaring plot hole, this was a really good series. Genuinely did not remember most of what happened in this series on rereading. It's like I removed the whole series from my mind, and I don't know why. Maybe it's because I just really enjoyed the Demon Arter and Zombie series, and my brain just threw this one out there. But really enjoyed my reread of these. Next up was my reread of Gallant by V. Schwab. This is the April book for Schwabalong. I'm not like a guest on the live show or anything, but I really wanted to reread this because the first time I read it was literally like the day before I went to the V. Schwab sign-in for this book, and I didn't want to risk having any spoilers. So I rushed through to read it, And I very much regret it because I gave it a 4-star, and ever since I'm like, if I'd given this more time, I feel like this could potentially be a 5-star. And this one took me a few days to read, and lo and behold, it came out as a 5-star on a reread. I really enjoyed this so much more the second time round because I actually took everything in properly, and I'm really happy I reread it. Next up is Night of Cake and Puppets by Laini Taylor. This is a little novella that takes place between the first and second book in the Daughter of Smoke and Bone series. It follows Susanna, and it's a really, really cute little addition to the series. I really enjoyed this. This was a 5-star, and I really like the illustrations in this. And I actually ended up borrowing this copy off of Ash, but I do think I'm going to try and get my own copy because even if I end up not loving the rest of the actual series, I love this in its own little world. It's just so adorable. Next up was another one that I borrowed from Ash, and it is Delilah Green Doesn't Care by Ashley Herring Blake. Holy Jesus, this was amazing. I am so happy that I decided to read this. This was a 5-star. 5-star. I really enjoyed the characters. I loved the little rivalry, and I loved the friendships that Delilah made, but also the development of her relationship that she has with her stepsister Astrid. So yeah, I very much enjoyed this. Loved the characters. It's sapphic, it's great. Also, Claire is a single mum, and there is like lots of things that go on with the father of her child, and I thought it was really well handled, some of the things, and it was really nice to see the resolution to that as well. So yeah. Next up, I did a buddy read of Days of Blood and Starlight by Laini Taylor with Emma. We are both desperately in need of finishing this series, so we both decided, let's buddy read this. This was a 4-star. I did really enjoy it. There was one thing near the end that almost made me DNF the series, but then it went a different way, and I was so glad it did. But there were a few things that just, I couldn't give this a 5-star. It did very much feel like a filler book, and I actually quite liked the character developments in this. But that just one thing, I couldn't get past it enough to bump it up to a 5-star. Next up, we have The American Roommate Experiment by Elena Armas. This is a sequel to Spanish Love Deception, and I am obsessed with this. This is a 5-star. I loved Spanish Love Deception, and it did get a 5-star, but I loved this one more. This one was just so much better. This is and they were roommates tropes, but it also has a bit of fake dating in there, which, if you know me, they are two of my favourite tropes in romances. So to have them both, and with how well written they were, I was just I was on cloud 9 reading this. Next up was another buddy read, and this was with Catherine, and it was For the Ravens by Cass Morgan and Danielle Page. Unfortunately, Catherine was not enjoying this. However, I am so glad I decided to keep this book and read it, because it was almost unhauled at one point, and I would be kicking myself. I want to go kick past me for nearly unhauling this, because this was a 5-star. To the point, if you watch my haul in a few days, you'll see the sequel to this. It was so good. So good. I really enjoyed the characters. You're not supposed to like some of them at first, and it shows, and I didn't, but some of the characters I warmed to a lot, and I just really, really enjoyed the development of the friendships in the sorority, and I just thought it was so well done. And the actual plot of it was so interesting, and with the witchcraft, and it was just so good. I had no idea what was going to happen, and it was amazing. Next up, we had another reread, and it was my Ghost of the Shadow Market reread. Obviously, this is for By the Angel Along, because it was the April book. Obviously, it was a 5-star, of course. This is a collection of short stories that follow Brother Zachariah through the years, and it spans over about 150 to 200 years. And that puts a lot of people off because it's a collection of short stories, and a lot of people didn't really like Bane Chronicles for that reason. However, Bane Chronicles doesn't really follow any sort of like plot line. There is an underlying plot that goes through the entirety of this book. They are all in chronological order and they are all very relevant, some to the Last Hours trilogy, which you're supposed to read after this, some to the More Instruments, some to the Dark Artifices, and leading on from the Dark Artifices, these are very much setting up the Wicked Powers trilogy, which is the final trilogy that we're going to be getting in this world, as announced so far anyway. But yeah, I absolutely adore this so much, and the full cast of the audiobook is so well done. I really enjoyed listening along whilst tabbing and crying. Next up, we had Sea Witch Rising by Sarah Hennen. This was a 4-star. I'm so glad I finally read this one as well. This has been on my shelves since 2019. I read the first book in 2020, and I'm only just reading this one now. But I really enjoyed this. It was really well done. I really liked the little twist on the story of Ariel and Ursula. It was really well done. It was really clever. And it wasn't just your straight retelling. There was very much differences, and that's what I liked, because I like them taking the story and just picking bits out of the story and then making it their own story, and Sarah Hennen has done that perfectly with this duology. I really enjoyed it. Next up, we had some more Darren Shan, and it was Birth of a Killer by Darren Shan. I've only read this one with Ash. It was a first time for me. This is like the one series that I hadn't read anything in. So this is actually a prequel series to the Darren Shan saga. This is the saga of Lawton Crepsley. Lawton Crepsley is the vampire that Darren is an assistant to in that series. So this is very much, this first book is finding out how he becomes a vampire's assistant and then becomes a vampire, and his first journey into being a vampire. And I'm excited to see how the rest of this series goes, because I know Lawton Crepsley's future because I've read the saga of Darren Shan, but I'm excited to see his past. I don't know if I mentioned, but this was a 4-star. Next up, we have The Little Paristisserie by Julie Kaplan. Oh my god, I love this book. This is a 4-star, very close to being a 5-star. I really enjoyed this. It was such a nice little like enemies to lovers, and I thought it was really well done with the characters, and the little side plot with the patisserie was just so lovely, and seeing Nina have all these friends that she makes through this like course that Sebastian's like teaching, and it was just so lovely, and I loved the ending. Next up, we had another reread, and it was Aurora Rising by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff. So I am a guest on Kristoff Along for this next couple of months, so I'm going to be reading the Aurora Cycle series with them, because I've only read this first book before. So I had to reread it because it has been a while, and I'm actually really glad I reread it, because there was actually a few things I had forgotten happened in this. I didn't do a huge amount of tabbing. Well, actually, I kind of did. I didn't tab this as much as I tabbed the Cassandra Clare books, but I still tabbed a fair bit. I made a few notes, but I'm excited to talk to the girls about this on the live show. I don't know if I said it was a 5-star again. And then the final book I read in the month of April was The Christmas Castle in Scotland by Julie Kaplan. This is the most recent book in the Romantic Escapes series, and this only came out late last year. This follows one of the characters that's actually in A Cozy Cottage in Ireland, and I loved Izzy in that. Izzy was amazing, but you don't really know Izzy much. Izzy is the main character in this, and it was just such a nice book, and you had the whole like Christmassy feel. And yes, I know it was April. I know I read it in April. Do I care that I read a Christmas book in April? No, I don't. No, I don't. I really enjoyed this. This was a 4-star. Only one Julie Kaplan book has actually got a 5-star from me, but these do sometimes come close. They just don't quite make it. Okay, so for my first ever month doing May the TBR be with you, I actually completed my TBR. So I know I did DNF this, but I still gave it a good shot. I always say I'm going to give a book at least 50 pages. There has been exceptions, but anyway. And I read 70 pages and I DNF'd it. But I read Birth of a Killer, which was Jawa, read a scavenge book. I got the ebook from the library and read that instead of reading the physical. I read Aurora Rising, which was Leia, a book with a found family. Squad 312 is a found family. Sea Witch Rising was my lightsaber pick because I never made it to all 5 planets in April. And then Days of Blood and Starlight was my Jinn pick, which was one of the oldest books on my TBR because I have had this since like 2019 or 2020 something. So that was that. And then for Eurovision-a-thon, which obviously takes place from the middle of April to the middle of May, Aurora Rising was my Australia pick because both authors are from Australia. Birth of a Killer was my Ireland pick because Darren Shan is Irish. Norma was my Finnish pick because the author is Finnish. Days of Blood and Starlight was my Czech Republic pick because it is partially set in Prague. Ghost of the Shadow Market was my Germany pick. This was a bit of a stretch because Idris, which is obviously the secret country for shadow hunters, is actually located along the German border, so Germany. I don't have physical copies, but the Christmas Castle in Scotland was for the UK. Little Paristisserie was for France, and then American Roma Experiment was for Spain because the male main character is Spanish. So there was that. And then I did also take part in the Great Bookish TBR Off, which is hosted by Catherine, Siobhan, Katie and Danny. And technically I did complete this. I need to check for one of them because Norma was one and I did DNF that, so I need to check if I'm allowed to log that. But for Read a Book with a Vibrant Cover, I read Aurora Rising. For Read a Book you can read in one sitting, I read Night of Cake and Puppets. Read a book that is mostly green on the cover, Norma. Read a book with flowers or plants on the cover, that was Gallant. TBR Veteran was The Ravens. Grumpy Sunshine book was Days of Blood and Starlight. Ghost of the Shadow Market was Read a Book with yellow on the cover. And then Christmas Castle in Scotland was Read Your Most Anticipated New Release. So I had a very successful readathon month as well. Like I said, with Eurovision-a-thon, I didn't this time around plan a book for every single country. But of the ones I did plan, Kingdom of Back is the only one I didn't read. And I have actually put that on my official May TBR. So I'm very happy with how this went. But my favourite book I read in April was Delilah Green Doesn't Care. I absolutely loved this and I'm so happy. So that was my reading wrap up for the month of April. Let me know in the comments below what your favourite book you read in April was. But I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you did, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you next time. Bye.